Hey everyone, Harris Rubenstein here for Chat Sports. Joining me again today is Brent Corobotiuc, the head risk manager at BetDSI. Brent, thank you for joining us today. Huge NFL weekend. We have a lot of great primetime games. Broncos-Chiefs, Monday Night Football. Patrick Mahomes has been on fire so far this year. How has the line changed throughout this week so far?
Yeah, I mean, Mahomes, he's really, what he's done is not, you got to remember, like, Andy Reid's been a pretty good coach. You look at him, what he's done with other quarterbacks like Alex Smith and such like that. So he obviously fell into a good situation there as well. So it's kind of, yeah, he is good. But he also has a really good, environment around him. He's got a couple of studs to play with. He's got a great tight end that he can rely on. Obviously, Tyreek the Freak is a great asset. And they've got a strong running game, too. So he really, taking nothing away from him, he kind of fell into a really ideal spot as well to shine, and he's obviously taken advantage of that. This week, this is one of those spots I often talk about how advantageous spots for us in terms of the book is whenever you've got kind of a pumped up favorite like the Chiefs on the road on a Monday night, Thursday night, and Sunday night game. Those are usually, they tend to be good spots for us. And this one's kind of setting up that way in that I do have, a lot of public money betting the Chiefs. My count, and I refer to my count in terms of the actual individual number of bets I've taken, is favoring Kansas City. So that's almost like twice as many bets that I've actually taken on Kansas City. Now, wow. The line has just kind of dropped slightly, ever so slightly. It's kind of like it did open like around 5. I even see there's a 5 out there as well still. We're at 4.5 right now, which seems to be working for us. And there's even a 4 that just popped up on the board. So I think this line's going to kind of pop between the 4.5 and 5 and back down to 4 pretty much up until kickoff. Because I think you're consistently going to see public money on Kansas City. They love betting the offense, of course, and all the points they put up. Denver's, they're supposed to be known for their defense, but they haven't been that great so far this year. So it's kind of a good spot for us. I do have sharp money on this one, actually, and it is on the total. Now, we haven't seen a significant move on the total towards the under, but I did take sharp money on the under 55.5. We're only down to 56. And again, that's a case where I've got 3 times as many bets on the over. So, no surprise at all that the public money is going to bet the over in this game, and they're going to bet the Chiefs. And, fortunately for me, I've got sharp money on the under going the other way.
Let's jump back in time a little bit, DeLorean style. Let's go from Monday Night Football back to Sunday Night Football. Let's talk about Steelers-Ravens, obviously one of the best rivalries that we have in the NFL and just in football in general. That gets reignited this weekend. Where are you seeing things going with this game? Obviously, the Ravens coming off that win against the Broncos, Steelers that big win on the road against the Buccaneers.
Yeah, again, it's a really good game, I think, in terms of the two teams, the matchup, the fact that it's in their division and such. You've got, Pittsburgh, who's sitting at 1-1-1, and Baltimore is, tied for the division lead at 2-1. So it's, it's really early in the week, but it is kind of a crucial game. Should Baltimore win this one on the road, that's kind of a big slap back down for Pittsburgh to go 1-2-1 at this point in the season. Pittsburgh is a slight favorite at home. They're a 3-point favorite, which is, again, it's one of those key numbers in NFL just due to the nature of scoring of football. Most common scoring is 3 points, a field goal, or 7 being a touchdown. So this one opened at 3, and we've basically been sitting at 3, so far. My wager count in terms of the bets I've taken, split almost identically. So right now it sets up as a good spot for us in that I think I'm going to be able to balance my action just using number 3. And that's kind of an ideal situation where if I don't have to move off a number and I can balance my action, it's an ideal spot in terms of profit-wise. Just looking at, what Pittsburgh did last week, if they got the blowout last week against Tampa Bay, it would have been really good for us, a blowout basically either way. But that one was quite interesting. Tampa Bay has been such a popular team so far this season, and I was surprised that that line went from Pittsburgh like -1, 1.5 to the point where Tampa Bay was favored as well.
If you want to bet on either of these great primetime games we have this week, head to chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code LIVE120 for a 120% deposit bonus. It's easy math, people. You deposit $100, you use that promo code, you get $120 for free for a grand total of $220 to bet with. Head to chatsports.com/bet. All right, Brent, let's get into some sharps money. Obviously, we've had a great NFL season so far, but every single week is its own animal. Where are you seeing money come in this week?
Well, right now, the Chargers are one of those games where, they've been their offense seems so good. They're a team that's really easy to get behind, I think, in terms of the offense, and that's a big spot for them in terms of the point spread this week. Excuse me. And they're actually on at home to San Francisco this time around. San Francisco just real tough in terms of what they've gone through offensively. This line on the Chargers has gone from 9.5 up to 10 or 10 minus 115, or even some 10.5s have popped up right there. So, the sharp money got behind the Chargers here, 9.5, and bumped it up to where we are right now at the minus 10. Again, 10-15. So you see, we kind of 10's not as much of a key number. I know we touched on how 7 and 3 were key numbers in terms of the NFL betting, but the Chargers got the sharp money. And again, with Jimmy G going down, and I mean, they lost their running back, before they even started. So, it's unfortunate for San Francisco because they looked like they were going to be a decent team and had a lot of, reason for optimism, but suddenly they're 1-2. They've lost their starting quarterback and their starting running back. And now I got sharp money saying that they're going to go 1-3 to start the year.
Ugly. Not what you're looking for there. What about the Bengals currently sitting here with their line? Seems that sharp money is coming in, taking the over on their projected score, 49 total points.
Yeah, this one's been driven up by sharp money. Over 49 is where I took sharp money. I think some people in the market did go, open up at 48, but fortunately I got to open at 49. So kind of, again, I talk about managing risk, and the less I have to move a number and get balanced action, the better off I am. So I took sharp money on the over 49. We're sitting at 52 right now. And again, we talk about the kind of public tendencies to bet overs, and they are on the over in this one as well. So we generally prefer when sharp money comes in the under, because you can figure the public's going to go the other way in terms of betting the over. But this is a case where I've got a whole lot of public money on the over and sharp money the other way as well. Packers, that's another one where I've got a total on the over, unfortunately, because, with the quarterback situation there with Rodgers, people always like to go over on that game. So I've got over money there as well. Over 44.5 is where that started coming in. I've moved up to 45.5 in terms of sharp money, driving that number as well. So I've got a wager count almost 3-1 going to the over, which again, probably no surprise at all that I've got over money involved in a Green Bay game. Green Bay in terms of the side as well was a sharp play this week. Green Bay minus 9.5. A lot of people, have this kind of idea that sharp money doesn't get behind big favorites and they won't touch double-digit favorites and such. But really, sharps are sharp for a reason in terms of, they look for value, and they found value here with Green Bay. Again, when it touched 9.5, the line's up to 10 right now. It's kind of interesting. I often, oversimplify things in terms of looking at my betting analysis. I think we touched on Chicago and Arizona last week in terms of Chicago being a 6-point favorite on the road, which meant if they were at home, they'd be a 12-point favorite, assuming the value of a home field of 3 points. So I just thought, simplifying things like, Arizona plus 12 seemed really quite attractive. And now just doing the same kind of, idea looking at this Green Bay game, Minnesota was Minnesota and Green Bay are thought to be, generally speaking, kind of, rather close in terms of the quality of the teams. Now, if Minnesota was a 16.5-point favorite at home to Buffalo last week, how come Green Bay is only a 9.5-point favorite this week? Now, you look at, too, in terms of the schedule and the setup situation last week for Buffalo. It really set up well for them in terms of the fact that Minnesota was coming off, I believe, the tie against Green Bay, and Minnesota this week, again, playing on a short week versus the Rams. So they this is what, sometimes in betting terms, they often call a sandwich spot, in that you're sandwiching, a bad team such as Buffalo really is, in between two big games in terms of the emotional game with Green Bay and the look-ahead game they have against, kind of a marquee game against the Rams on national TV on the Thursday. So Minnesota, kind of almost don't want to excuse them for coming out flat, although they did get throttled by Buffalo. But I think the Sharps probably found value in Green Bay because of that. Now, if Minnesota had beat up on Buffalo last week, I'm sure this line would have opened at probably 16.5 or maybe 14.5 for Green Bay. So they found value with Green Bay on the minus 9.5. And another real intriguing match, I think, is Chicago and Tampa Bay. This one really sets up well for us in terms of identifying one of those sharp versus public splits, because, I know Chicago has been kind of a popular team this season, but Tampa Bay, obviously, with Fitzmagic and all that stuff, they've been everyone's kind of in love with Tampa Bay in terms of their offense and what they've done. This was one of those spots where I've got public money all over Tampa Bay. I've got a lot more bets on Tampa Bay, 2-1, just slightly slightly more than 2-1 in terms of the actual number of bet count favoring Tampa Bay, but I have sharp money on Chicago -3. Now, this line really hasn't moved a whole lot. We're still sitting at 3, but that's because we got so much, public money the other way on Tampa Bay. And I think, again, I don't try and get into the minds of sharps, but if you look at Tampa Bay, I believe they've been rather fortunate in terms of their explosive offensive plays. They probably had, I think I read something that it was they were second behind the Rams in terms of how much, their offense had over-exceeded their kind of expectation, or their expectation in terms of explosive plays. Not that the Rams have over-exceeded, but they were second to the Rams in terms of what they call explosive plays. The metrics suggest that they were fortunate, and their offensive success beyond that has just basically been average. They're also on a short week, which in terms of preparation kind of favors the home side, Chicago. And Chicago, in terms of defensive line and offensive line, should probably have their way with this game.
Mm-hmm. Brent Corobotiuc joining us here from BetDSI. Let's now jump over to one of the more fun prop bets that BetDSI is currently offering. It's whether or not Jason Garrett will be the Cowboys head coach in 2019. Have you seen any movement around that prop bet quite yet, or are people still waiting to see how this Cowboys season goes?
Yeah, we've got actually a little bit of money that's driven the line up to -190 on Garrett. Just a slight tick up in terms of him not returning as the head coach of the Cowboys. And again, I mean, Dallas obviously is a real tough spot to be the head coach, and you've got an owner who basically likes to manage the team himself. They are 1-2 on the season, right, so they're already looking up at Washington and Philadelphia, and the Giants probably might be a better team than them. So I think Dallas is going to have a real tough season, and there's so much pressure there. And he's really, Garrett's really had his chance, I think. And so right now we're up to -190 that he won't return. And again, when you kind of look at -190, it's always a good idea to equate those prices to a probability. The break-even point for -190 is a 65% chance. So what we're suggesting, or the money is suggesting so far, is there's a 65% chance that he doesn't return. If you think the actual odds should be somewhere closer to, say, 75%, then that would reflect like a -300 price. So right, getting 190, if you're really sure he's not coming back, -190 is actually an attractive price.
Yeah, I'd take that. And if you want to bet on whether or not Jason Garrett will be the head coach in 2019, chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code LIVE120, and you can get a 120% deposit bonus. Probably a pretty good deal to put some money down on him not coming back as the head coach of the Cowboys. All right, Brent, one last thing for you before we let you go. I want to talk a little bit about bankroll management errors. How can people go about avoiding these issues when they're sports gambling? Is there specific things that they can look out for in order to keep their, keep their money in check?
Yeah, I think there are various, theories out there in terms of how people should manage their bankroll. I think the Kelly criterion is probably the most common. Glancing over that, it's basically that you can use a set percentage of your bankroll as how much you're going to wager. Now, if that's 3% or 5%, that's up to you in terms of your comfort level. But the idea with that is if you stick to a consistent percentage as you're winning, the actual dollar amount that you're betting, it goes up, and when you're losing, that actual dollar amount that you're risking goes down. So the idea is that you're betting more when you're winning and a little bit less when you're losing. And it's kind of a smart long-term strategy, at least to stay in the game. The other thing I think people make big mistakes of, they'll have a really good day or a really good week, and they'll start thinking that they're betting with the book's money. Now, once you've won that, you've used your money to win that money, so it's always been your money. It's never been the book's money. So I think that kind of mentality and that it's like a free roll. I'm using the book's money in this case. It's your money. I think another common mistake, and again, comes back to the Kelly criterion, is what people will bet a lot more on a certain game because it's on TV or they're having a good week or whatever it is. Just because the game's on TV, you really don't have to bet it. And I always touch on this as well, that the kind of advantage that bettors have versus us is I have to put up a line for every single game pretty much. They don't have to bet it at all. They can just take a pass. So, really use that to your advantage. Pick spots and don't bet TV games just because they're on TV.
Brent Corobotiuc from BetDSI, not only trying to win you guys money, also trying to save you guys some cash down the line. Brent, thank you so much for joining us today.
I appreciate you having me on, Harris.